Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined a doctor as he travels the vortex and landed at episode number 252. And in this podcast, you'll hear no puns. It's a line in the sand, no puns. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
And no banter either.
No banter. I'm against banter.
I'm against banter.
I'm on record as being against banter.
Did you guys have a good week?
Yes.
I bet you did, Glenn.
The future is here. No, yeah, I was off all week, so which was timed
Even
perfectly.
better.
Timed perfectly. Because, you know, all I did this week was Back to the Future stuff. That was Wednesday I celebrated.
You got all of them watched on Wednesday.
I got them all watched.
In addition to
Back in Time. I got up early, took the kids to school, came home. The first thing I did was watch Back in Time, which was a great documentary. It's really, really good.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I like how they did it in the three parts, where they started with the film and getting it made and the connections to the future, and then the middle part was the fans, and they dwelled on the kind of the DeLorean most in that one, and then kind of went back to where does it go from here kind of thing. And I thought it was really well put together, and it was quite enjoyable.
And I like that because when I went and did my rewatch of all three movies, I went ahead and watched some of the bonus features on the 25th anniversary Blu-rays, which I hadn't watched before. And there were some similar stories told, but they were different enough that I didn't feel like it was repeated.
It wasn't a rehash. Yeah, I agree.
Like some of the origin stuff, you can't change that too much of how the movie got made. But then there was a lot of it in there that was different enough from the bonus features, which was nice.
It was good. It was real well put together.
And smarter than they'll release it on Wednesday on Netflix.
Yeah. Well, Netflix had it apparently Hoopla Digital, which is the library borrow. You could get it there as well. And I think I saw Amazon had it.
It would make sense. They had all three actual films, too.
So it was nice that there were avenues for people to see that on that day, too. I thought that was a nice job getting that orchestrated. And I watched Back to the Future, and then I went to the mall because I thought, I want some Back to the Future stuff. Surely I can find a T-shirt or I can find a hat or something. I walked all over our mall. Well, actually, I'm going to call Sean out here first because I went to Vintage Stock because I thought of all the places in town that would be celebrating Back to the Future Day, of all places, Vintage Stock would have something going on. I didn't expect a DeLorean in the parking lot. But I went in.
I tried. Joe Pace is too expensive.
And my first thought was, surely they'll be playing the soundtrack. No, they had some mainstream group that I don't know anything about, never heard of before in my life. So I walked through the store thinking, okay, well, maybe because they have movies on sometimes, surely the movie will be playing in the background, even if they don't have the sound up. No film whatsoever. So I walked through, and I'm apprised later that there apparently was a display or end cap somewhere that I did not see. It's certainly not at the front of the store. Because I couldn't find it anywhere. Walked around and I thought, well, at the very least, I'll see if they've got the Back to the Future game that I could pick up on the 360. Forgetting that it's a download only on the 360.
No, it's available now.
It is available.
And we had it. And it was on the front end cap.
It must have been on where you were keeping it because I looked in the 360s. But anyway, so I looked around the store and I walked out there with my head hung, thinking, "Wow, this is pretty lame." So I went to the mall because I thought I want to look at Hot Topic because I thought
rebut before you get into all
Go
that?
ahead.
So the game was on the very front end cap with all the new release games.
Oh, I didn't think about going to the.
There was a Back to the Future end cap that was set up. Admittedly, it was in the back of the store a little bit because I had it up front and center first thing.
It should have been
earlier this year. And then as time wore on and nobody was buying it, it kind of got shuffled a little further to the back of the store to make room for the new stuff.
Makes
but
sense.
when I came in at 2, it was up still. When I came in at 2, the trilogy went in the DVD player.
I knew as soon as you got to work it was going to happen.
And everything got moved
but the
right up
store
front
had
on
already
top
been
of the
open
cooler.
4 hours before
That's not my
that.
department,
You
man.
should have had that ahead.
Not my circus,
You
not
should
my
have
monkeys.
given them monkeys a heads up the day before and said, make sure this stuff's going because you're going to have people come in the morning.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, I was going to go back after you got to work because I knew that once you got to work it would be wall to wall. But I didn't make it back out. So anyway, I went to the mall and I went to Boom, and they had the Back to the Future comics, so I picked that up. And actually,
How much they charge you for that?
it was the same price. Both of them were
Really?
covered. Yeah, they charged me cover price for both. But I looked at it. What was the thing? Is because I was only going to get the newsstand one, and I looked at the other one and I went, "This is so cool. I don't buy variants. It's Back to the Future Day at Celebration. It's only going to come once ever. I could have bought the comic book any day, but it was so special that day that I bought the variant cover. And so I took them home, and I was online for a little bit, and I remembered that I had remembered from the that's the regular cover.
Yeah.
Oh, did we get? Okay, I didn't realize that. Anyway, so I got home and I remembered the Eric Stoltz stuff that they had talked a little bit about in Back in Time, and I thought, they did a comic book for that
did they?
a year ago, I guess it was. It's called Back to the Future. And the premise of the comic is, what if Bob Gale and this other actress that was fired at the same time that Eric Stoltz went back in time and caused it so that Eric Stoltz didn't get fired, and Back to the Future was made with Eric Stoltz instead of Michael J. Fox. And I thought, well, this has always been kind of intriguing. So I went to Amazon, and they had a Kindle version of it for $7.
Is that the one you reviewed?
Yeah,
on Goodreads.
So I downloaded it and I read it, and it's a quick read. It came out in 5 parts. The one that's online is an anthology. It's the entire collection, but it's in 5 parts, and it's really quick read because it's almost 2 panels a page most of the time, sometimes 3.
Oh wow!
And so I sat down and I read it, and immediately regretted my $7 purchase. It's a horrible, terrible story. It's not good at all. The only reason I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads is because the artwork is amazing. So it bumped up a star for me for that. So it got a little more than it probably should have. But
have you read the actual comic you picked up?
I did, and then
good?
That's what I did after that. Is read the it's
the new one good?
Yeah, it's called when Marty met Doc, or when Doc met Marty. I think is what it's called. That's the anything. It's cute. It's really neat.
Is this a continuing line?
I watched it is a continuing line of comics because I think what it's going to do is it takes place. At least it's set up and bookend with Doc still in the Old West trying to perfect the time travel again so that he can with the train. So the boys are very young. In fact, he's telling this story of how he met Marty to the kids, and that's how the story is set
Jules
up.
And Vern.
Yeah, Jules and Vern. So it's really well set up. So I washed the taste of the other one out of my mouth by reading that one, and then later in the afternoon, I fired up Back to the Future 2 and watched it and went. And interestingly enough, I fired it up about the time. I think I was off by about a half hour. About the time that they actually arrive at like 4 something in the afternoon, which would have been 6 something our time because it's California.
True.
And so I went, hey, there's kind of a bit of serendipity. So watched it.
I was able to get the future part of Back to the Future 2 watched before it hit midnight. So I was able to get all the future stuff in before they get back to the alternate 1980s.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Before it turned over to the 22nd.
So watched that, and then after Mason went to bed, I dug out the Back to the Future game that I have, which is similar to, and it's actually very similar to Chrononauts.
Oh, the card game, yeah.
Very similar, the card game. And so we set it up, and I read the instructions. It's a good thing I did because there's a little bit of deviation from the Chrononauts game. So it made it easier to play knowing how to play Chrononauts, but there is a little bit of difference. In fact, the goal is you have to get everything on your card, your ID card, the way it needs to be, and you have to stop time travel from being invented because that kind of locks everything into place. And so what you do is there's one set of cards on the B line that the one side is Doc Brown invents time travel. The other side of it is Doc Brown hangs a clock, which I think was brilliant because Doc Brown was hanging a clock when he slipped and fell and hit his head. And if he had hung a clock, he wouldn't have fallen, slipped and hit his head and invented time travel, or came up with a flux capacitor anyway. The other cool thing about it is there's that's the only card in the whole timeline that has 4 cards underneath it. And what you do is if you turn it over and it's the right one that says Doc hangs a clock, you've entered the game and you win. If you turn it over and it says unseen forces prevent this event from happening, you set that aside, and Doc has still created a time machine. So you have to get it to the point where you've turned the right card over, and they're shuffled. So you could turn it over the first time, or you could turn it over 4 times later if it's buried at the bottom.
That's cool.
So I thought that was
really
neat.
cool.
Yeah, it gives you an option to keep going if you have to. So that was a lot of fun. So Caitlin had a little hard time wrapping her head around about. We got a game or two in, and then after that, the girls went to bed, and I fired up Back to the Future 3 and watched it. And I actually finished watching Back to the Future 3, I think at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock. So I didn't get quite all of them in that one day, but I figured a day is while I'm up. So
I had to spread my viewings out 3 days and then parse back in time through multiple viewings.
So I ended the day. Actually, that was it. I was going to go to bed after that. I was done. I was like, this is the perfect end cap of the day. And then I went, oh, I forgot to watch the game, or the ride. So I went ahead and fired up the ride and watched the ride because I loved the ride. It was so cool. It's cheesy, but it's so good. So funny. So that was how I ended my day, was watching Back to the Future, the ride.
Did anybody pick up the new Blu-ray set?
No.
I did not.
I did.
You did?
I haven't picked up the
set?
animated adventures.
No.
That I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy the animated adventures, but I'm going to buy it separately because I've already got the 25th anniversary.
Well, here's the deal. The new Blu-ray set, whether you buy the big, huge honking one that's got everything, or you can buy just the trilogy on Blu-ray. But for you, if you're wanting the animated series too, you could upgrade. It includes everything.
Well,
every single thing that's on the 25th anniversary, including the ride.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, there's another bonus disc.
yeah,
full of
that's
stuff.
what I've heard. Yeah. Now the animated adventures is also on its own set.
And the
box
animated
set as well.
adventures is
Yeah,
so
that's
separate.
what I'll probably.
Which is
end
what
up
I
buying.
want to wind up doing, because I looked at. I really wanted the big all set with the light up flux capacitor box.
$150 retail.
No, it's in fact Walmart had it for sale for $69.59.
Yeah, it's suggested resale
for the
was
whole
150.
shebang.
Yeah,
Wow.
was $149.
We're
I
selling
think
it
was
for
suggested retail.
$79.
Yeah, which is
Nobody
sells up for suggested
Yeah,
retail.
nobody sells it. Well, we do, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was affordable, but Target had an exclusive steelbook
Yeah, I saw
for the
that.
trilogy, and that was what Mel wanted. So it was like, okay, we'll get that, and then I'll just pick up as long as it's got all the same
So you didn't
stuff,
have
and
it
I'm
on
not
Blu-ray
missing
before?
anything. No, I had it. I've got the
you-
25th
you-
anniversary
okay.
set.
But
upgraded
it makes
too.
sense since you buy steelbooks too.
Yeah.
Right.
You were able to
Well, that's
also
when the
upgrade that
catch
as well.
was. Is like, do I buy both? Because I kind of want this box because it's got the animated series in it, but I don't need both if I'm going to have that. And then it was like, oh, the animated series is available separately, so I'll buy it. But one of the bonus features on that set is a short film called Doc Brown Saves the World.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was awesome! He's talking to, it's Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown.
But don't spoil it for us. You can set it up. but-
He's talking to the camera, and he's kind of explaining that a catastrophe befalls mankind in the year 2045, and that he's backtracked everything to 4 inventions: the hydrator, lace-up shoes,
Paradise shoes.
power lace shoes, hoverboards,
And flying cars.
and Mr. Fusion.
Mr. Fusion.
Oh, okay.
And that those 4 combine together to create this. So he goes back in time to prevent all of them from being invented, thus skewing the timeline, and it's genius.
Oh, I forgot to mention that as I was watching getting ready to watch Back to the Future 3, on my timeline on Facebook popped up a picture of Jimmy Kimmel and Doc Brown and Marty. And I went, that's awesome. And I looked at the clock and it was 10:30 and I went, I bet this is going to happen. So it was almost like I had a copy of the newspaper from the day next day. And so I think this is going to happen. So I turned over and got to watch live
Oh, nice.
Marty McFly and Doc Brown show up on Jimmy Kimmel, which was and Dave Euler, one of our friends, said it the best. Jimmy Kimmel won the day.
Yeah.
He had them on in character, and they both looked like they were having a blast. And I agree with somebody posted later that this was the first time they've seen Michael J. Fox really act like he was enjoying this character again. Because a lot of times you see him in interviews, and he's a little put offish of it. And I think it's because it's just become such a big part of his life, and he's done other things. And even in the interviews throughout the day, because I watched the Today Show interview and some of the other things he'd done, he seemed very into it, but it was still sort of that level of, this is just something that was a part of my life. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I owed a lot to it. But when he came on stage and they both just went right back into character. Now,
Well,
Christopher
it
Lloyd...
helps that there was that 10-minute long standing ovation, just roar of noise from the audience.
It was amazing.
It was just
Now,
goosebumps.
Christopher Lloyd, you could tell he's getting on in age, and he was struggling with some of his lines. But I'll tell you, Jimmy jumped in and helped him out a lot of times, and it just made everything go so
That was all
smooth.
technobabble.
Yeah, it was just it was really that, and because they probably got the script the day of, probably only had 1 or 2 rehearsals of it. But yeah, they pulled it off, and I watched that thing and I thought, wow. I don't usually watch Jimmy Kimmel. I'm not a fan of his show, but I went, this guy did an amazing thing here, so I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Did you get to see?
I didn't watch it.
It's online now.
It's
I need to go
available to
watch
watch it,
it.
and they're there and they're on stage and they roll
I saw
up
the
in the
pictures
DeLorean,
with the DeLorean,
the whole bit, which is great. And then the other special guest shows up, the one in the audience.
Oh, I forgot about Huey.
Huey is in the audience in the get-up with a bullhorn.
Hey guys,
You're just too darn loud.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It
That's
was awesome.
Well, and then as they played out to commercial, they played "Power of Love," and he was singing too.
Yeah, and it was the
really
news.
cool.
They were all up in the.
It was,
cool.
up in the little
Or no, it was Back in Time. It was.
it was Back in Time. Yeah, it was Back in Time.
But yeah, that was the greatest thing. It was the cherry on top of the sundae.
Of course, throughout the day, I was going on YouTube and I watched the Power of Love video because that's a great video too. Because Doc rolls up at the beginning. It's one of those extended videos, and I watched the Nike Air commercial from about 5 years ago where he comes in and he's 5 years too early. They've actually got the shoes, but they don't have the power laces yet. So I just had a blast all day long. I was just, this is my day. I'm going to immerse myself in one of my favorite fandoms, and I did from beginning to end. That's all I did all day was just, this is Back to the Future Day. It's one time it's going to happen, and.
Now, the sad part of this is the meme that I saw circulating later in the day when somebody put 2 and 2 together and said, you realize that as of Thursday, this entire trilogy takes place in the past.
Yeah, I saw that pop up on Tuesday.
And I went, oh. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm old now.
There was a lot of great memes online.
I was impressed at how well the movies. It's been a while since I've watched them, but I was impressed with how well they hold up.
Yeah.
Some of the shots of mostly when it's the same actor twice is a bit more noticeable than it used to be for me, anyways. But
seamless,
such good movies. I did have a realization while watching 3
that you liked it more than you thought you did.
Well, actually, yeah, a little bit, but at that point, Doc Brown's like in his 60s. Good on him. Finding a love interest that late in life.
He got the rejuvenation treatment in the
I thought of
future,
that. I was like, okay.
And he's in his 60s, but now he's really like he's in his 30s again.
The 60s is the new 30s.
Right, exactly.
From Doc Brown.
From the Doc's perspective, 60 is the new 30.
And I never noticed how much before. I think I always knew it in the back of my head how many, like, especially in the future of Marty's playing or Michael J. Fox is playing all of his kids. I never noticed how much before. Never noticed the daughter as much as I did this time. Wow, that really is Michael J. Fox dressed as a woman. All right.
Yeah, and I think he pulled it off.
They did a good job of obscuring his eyes most of the whole time, so you can't really tell.
Right.
With the cell phones.
Yeah. It's the voice sometimes that it's like. I
think Seamus McFly is the greatest. Side character that he plays. Maggie, got a hurt man. I love this. There's just nothing.
Well, the line at
perfect.
the end, the line near the end where he shows up at the saloon when Marty's supposed to go out and face down Biff, and he shows up, and the bartender says, "I didn't expect to see you in here," and he says, "I just felt like I had to be here, like my future had something to do with it." So I was like, "Oh my gosh, what a great line!" Like my future depended on it.
That was the one thing really to take out of that Back in Time documentary was the perfectness of the script of the first film.
Oh, yeah.
I've maintained up and down and will to my dying day that it's a perfect trilogy because everything works. Even the stuff that seems forced, like, I can't let them think I'm a chicken. It's like, I don't care where that comes from because it pays off at the end and it just everything works. But the first film in particular, that script is airtight. There's nothing
absolutely.
you can do.
Oh, yeah. The first film.
You can pick apart the 2 and 3 a little bit if you want to nitpick. But
it is. They should teach that in film school.
Well, it wasn't until it really wasn't until I watched it again, and I think even the Back in Time pointed this out, was that so many films about the future are about how, drab and dystopian and how, apocalyptic and the future is, and how it's such a down look on the future. And Back to the Future 2 is really this bright, uplifting, fun, hopeful future. Yeah. And I like that about it. And it really kind of hit home that, this is one of the few films that does that.
Well, and it's very much an updated 50s vibe.
All
of the beats that they hit when he winds up back in Hill Valley of the 50s and sees the self-service gas station and has his mind blown that was a thing. And then when there's the automated Texaco, and it's kind of, beat for beat, it's the same. And the 50s, I think we, or at the very least, fondly remember them as this very time. So.
Yes.
The 50s we see in Back to the Future is very much a nostalgic version of the 50s.
Yeah.
It's not
a romanticized.
Exactly.
50s,
I loved that when I can't remember if it was Back in Time or in the bonus features on the Blu-ray, how they're talking about how we didn't mean to invent the hoverboard. We just were trying to do a cool riff off what we did in the first film, and it just happened that we invented this hoverboard.
I had forgotten.
That's a logical
until
evolution.
Zemeckis came out in that interview.
I had forgotten.
Oh, no, those were real.
Yeah, I had forgotten years ago. I remember all of us falling for that. Hoverboards are real. Robert Zemeckis said it in an interview. I remember that. And we were so baited on that for so long. Well, they're real. They just won't, they don't want kids to have them because they're too dangerous. And somebody's kid had their dad write a letter to Universal or somebody saying, or Hasbro, I think it was, saying, it's okay to release the hoverboard. You have my permission. My son can have one. Are you kidding?
Oh, I was never so disappointed with any shopping experience in my life as when I finally went down to Universal Studios and went to the Back to the Future the ride and then got into the gift shop because I'd brought money. I had $100 and I was going to buy. I figured this has got to be where they sell them at, right? Surely there's hoverboards available in the gift shop at the Back to the Future experience. Nope.
Anyway, enough about Back to the Future.
I did get a hoverboard though.
Yeah, that's right. You did get a hoverboard.
We earlier this month we saw Loot Crate was time themed, so we're like, we have to get that. Oh, duh. So, and it was a 1/5 scale hoverboard on a nice
working. I saw it. He had a picture of it. It was hovering off his desk.
It's got a really nice mirror base. So you can see the bottom of it. Unfortunately, it is permanently attached to the base, so you can't remove it, which is a little disappointing for me. But, And then we got a pop figure, an exclusive Doc Brown with goggles and clamps of electricity. And it also included a Bill and Ted shirt that says, "Be excellent to each other," and a sonic spork. So it's the sonic screwdriver as the handle and a metal spork on the end.
Nice.
And all four are Loot Crate exclusive things. So, and there's a nice, in the book, usually there's a book that comes with all of them. One side it's the out of time license plate, and then the other side is a flow chart of which doctors you should choose. The first bit of news: there's going to be a K9 movie called K9 Timequake, set for cinemas in 2017. So,
well, keep going because
there's
a big,
important
to
part
me.
of the
There was
story.
a bigger important thing about
the
this
film.
story.
Has been written by one of K9's original creators, Bob Baker, who has written many Doctor Who serials. Here's the description. Wait, where is it? Where'd it go? Oh, the new K9 will be appearing in a multi-million-dollar movie which promises to be a great action adventure set in deep space. The film will be full of dashing heroes and heroines, androids and monstrous aliens, and an ultimate foe who will also be familiar to Doctor Who fans everywhere, the megalomaniac Omega. No word on who's playing Omega. 2017. And for those curious, it is the most recent incarnation of K9, not the classic one we all know and love.
The one from the TV series.
The new
Because that's the
spin-off.
one that
think it was on
Bob
CBBC.
has the rights to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the classic one.
Makes me wonder if we're going to actually get Time Lord Omega, or if they're just cleverly going to name the villain Omega, and it won't have any connection to the Time Lords whatsoever, because of the fact that this is done outside of the BBC and outside any licensing that would be necessary.
Did Bob Baker write the Three Doctors?
That's what I'm looking up now.
If he did, then we're good. But he still can't say. He probably can't say Time Lord. He probably can't. I mean, there's probably certain things that he can't connect Omega to. But,
Oh, yeah. All right, so...
But Omega is such a generic name. I'm
He
sure
did
that
write
the
the
BBC,
Three Doctors.
He did, okay. So, I bet Omega is not
Curiously-
something that even if you copyrighted it, you couldn't copyright it. It's just such a generic...
Unless it was the name of your show.
Right.
Maybe
right,
then.
Maybe.
But
he did not write Omega's second appearance.
Arc of Infinity.
Yeah.
He must have licensed the character out, though,
Yeah.
to him. Interesting. So,
just don't
here's...
like
Exciting. I'll go see it in the theater.
So...
I just don't like
Here's a couple of things about this, though. When you say 2017, a lot can happen between now and then. So I can't get too excited about it, although I think it's very thrilling right now. Secondly,
I don't
have
hold out a lot of hope
seen,
it's going to come out over here.
I haven't seen the series yet that aired on CBBC, I think it was.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen it yet?
No, not
Okay,
yet.
so first of all, write that down, put that on the schedule. It doesn't have to be in the stuff immediate. You can put it down in your For the Future file. But you need to put that on
before
schedule.
2017.
Before 2017, yeah. Before it comes out.
We're
in
going to treat
2017.
it like another Doctor Who spinoff, and we'll do the whole season in one.
Yeah,
show.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I think so. So, I have no point of reference, but from Doctor Who fans, I've never heard good things about the series. So, I'm reserving judgment until I actually see the series proper, and then I'm still going to hold judgment and not automatically judge the film that hasn't come out
absolutely.
yet based on the series, but I am a little skeptical about it just because of the fact that it hasn't been smiled on very favorably by the fans of Doctor Who. So, but yeah, exciting news. K9, Omega, bring it on.
And
It's
in a
kind of
film
weird
form.
that the
At least they still have...
spin-off gets a cinematic movie before. And here's the other question. Do you think we'll get it here in the States?
Yeah, I don't think we will. I'd be surprised if we did.
So.
At least they still have John Leeson doing the voice. I'm assuming
Yeah.
for the movie. They did for the series.
They
so
did
I
for
don't
the
know why they
series,
wouldn't bring him on for the...
Put me down for 5 on the mud.
Our next bit of news, we have some con announcements. First up, if you are going to be near St. Louis or Madison coming up, David Tennant. David Tennant. Tannant.
Well, you've only had
David Tannen.
4 drinks of that beer.
David Tennant.
And Billy Piper will be at the said convention.
David Piper and Billy Tennant is going to be it.
St. Louis is April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of next year, and Madison is April 9th, 10th, 8th, 9th, and 10th of next year. And, to add on to that, January 8th, 9th, and 10th of this year in New Orleans, Matt Smith, Karen Gillan, and Jenna Coleman will all be at the New Orleans Wizard World Convention.
That's cool.
That's a nice lineup right there. Only one person, a couple people missing from that lineup. Arthur Darvill and Alex Kingston was all you need to round out the perfect trifecta.
Well, and Peter Capaldi.
That too. And
I imagine he's a trifle busy at the moment.
other guests, Galley has announced quite the big guests.
Who's coming to Galley, Sean?
Sir John Hurt. And it hurts.
Sir John and the Hurts. Sounds like a band.
First, kudos to Galley for pulling off the stunt casting of the century with getting that guest lineup. I mean, you got John Hurt. What? And, just drive that nail in the coffin of my not going next year a little deeper and a little harder. because it's. But yeah, that's pretty amazing. They're also bringing back Jamie Matheson and Rachel Taylor, writer extraordinaire of Flatline, Mummy on the Orient Express, and this year's The Girl Who Died. Rachel Taylor was the director of Dark Water, Death in Heaven, and this year's Heaven Sent, Hellbent combo. The usual assortment of other writers and peeps that they've had previously are back again, as well as Colin Baker.
I think that's neat.
I don't know if that was
three doctors.
Yeah, three Dr. Khan. You've got Peter
That's
Davison,
the
Colin
most
Baker,
they've had
and
at
John Hurt.
Gallifrey, right?
It ties the most they've had, I think.
Oh, has it? Okay.
I don't remember which. Certainly in the time that I've been going, it was been two was the most. But I want to say there was another year where they had three of them. But I could be wrong. Frequently am.
So jealous.
So yeah, if you have tickets to Galley, hoard them. Unless you really can't go, in which case I know some guys here around the table would be happy to struggle to figure out a way to take those tickets off your hands for this year.
Struggle how to get there. So we thought we'd also give a nice little roundup of other Who conventions coming up. Li Who, Long Island's Doctor Who 3 convention, November 13th through the 15th. We'll see Paul McGann, Noel Clarke, Katie Manning, Camille Coudry, Carol Ann Ford, Dan Starkey, Janet Fielding, Annette Badland, Fraser Hines, Ian McNeice, Wendy Pradbury, and Derek Sherwin, along with Daphne Ashbrook and Mel's.
You still can't pronounce her name.
Nina Toussaint White.
Hey.
There you go. Look at that. You've been practicing, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Chicago TARDIS coming up in November the 27th through the 29th, which is, again, I believe it's again Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Chicago.
4 short weeks.
Technically Lombard, Illinois.
Yeah.
But it's Chicago TARDIS. Appearing Saturday only, Jenna Coleman. Other guests include, all 3 days include Paul McGann and Samuel Anderson, who played Danny Pink, the always lovely Nicholas Briggs, and I think we've talked about most of their guest lineup before, but it does briefly include Richard Franklin, Bern Gorman, Jason Hayellery, David Howe, Christopher Jones, Finn Jones, Tony Lee, and John Levine, and Katie Manning, and Sarah Louise Madison, and Ian McNeice, and Eve Miles. And Dan Starkey and Gary Russell. They've added some people apparently since the last time I looked.
Keeps growing.
So they've got a good lineup as well. So if you're near one of these conventions, go check them out.
And we should round out our convention talk with the official announcement that Time Eddy 2 is taking place. October 14th through the 16th. You can go get discount registration now, as well as discounted rooms. Right now, you can get a weekend pass for $44.
That's dirt cheap, folks.
That's really
Dirt
cheap.
Yeah.
I
paid that for one of my days, for just one day this year.
And it will not be extended up through Thanksgiving. You have. You enter the discount code K9. It's all on their website. New website, timeeddy.com also.
Good. I must have had enough money to buy that out from somebody else.
Yeah. I have not seen if it's the same venue. Let me go look. It is at the same venue.
No, good. It was a great
Yeah,
venue.
it was a good venue.
It worked out really well. And I'm sure, what was it? Comfort Inn?
Best Western
Best
North.
Western North, yeah. I think they must have been very impressed with our hospitality. We were impressed with their hospitality. They must have been impressed with our, what am I looking for? Gravitas, whatever we presented there to them to be willing to hold it again for us. So we didn't ruin it for anybody. I don't mean us three particularly.
I wondered where you were going with that. I was
as
like, what
fans,
did we do? Did I get an email that I missed?
No,
or?
Doctor Who fans
Doctor Who
who
fans,
are
okay.
always a wonderful group of people obviously behaved themselves well enough that the Best Western thought that it was
worthwhile to bring
us back. Yes, so.
I don't want to get Keith too excited. The guest page for Time 92, there's nothing listed. They said it's, in progress. But there is a picture of K9. So maybe that means something.
Time Eddy is promising what is returning. Tulsa TARDIS.
Yay.
Cosplays.
Yay!
Fan panels. Same venue. Open access vibe. They are promising different guests from various eras of the show, more vendors, more fan participation activities, a live music event, murder mystery sci-fi event, which additional...
Would you contact Kieran and tell him they can promise traveling the Vortex to
I
be there
will.
again?
And more canines
More canines.
is listed on the item.
More canines. Maybe perhaps even the man who voiced canines.
Ooh.
I'd pay $45 for that.
That's it in news. Let's move on to feedback. Our first bit of feedback.
I like how there's that pause, like maybe this will be the week he has a song. And there
never
isn't. And then he continues. But every week there's just a little bit of a pause. You just keep pausing.
Just in case.
I was this close to writing one to the tune Back in Time, but I just didn't get it done.
We could just sing Back in Time. It works.
No, it'd be
Tell me, Doctor.
Time.
Didn't we do
there
that
you
one?
go.
Didn't I do that one once?
Did you do feedback time? Maybe you did.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
So should I dig back into the
We're
archive?
going to have to go back now.
Insert it.
Oh, hold on. Let me go look now and see. You can continue on with your feedback question. I got to go look this up now. Thanks, Glenn.
Our first bit of feedback comes from Theta Sigma.
You did do Back in Time. I remember it now. In fact, I think that might be on our YouTube page. It might have been the one time I videoed you doing it.
Okay.
You did do Back in Time. I'm certain you did. Okay, well then.
Sean's going to go confirm.
It would have been redundant if I had done it anyway, so no, I'm glad I didn't, because I had forgotten
Oh,
it.
well, like it'll be the first time we've whipped
I could have
a
done
dead
Power
horse.
of Love, I guess.
Go ahead, continue. This is going to take me a moment to pull this up, but I do surprisingly have them, you know.
Our first bit of feedback comes from Theta Sigma. It's a combo text and audio feedback. He says, "Hi guys, recently rediscovered the show and loving it once again. Cheers." Oh, and I thought I would drop you a little feedback on the girl who died. Cheers. So let's take a listen.
Once again, the pre-credit sequence was superb. As with the last couple of weeks, this was a return to classic-style Doctor Who, with the TARDIS in peril and the Doctor trying to fix things as well as at the same time trying to rescue Clara. Fantastic. Also loving the Doctor channeling every spider hater in the universe in the manner in which he stomps the love sprite to death. Also, did anyone else think for more than a split second that Team TARDIS was back on Skaro in the petrified forest outside the Dalek city? Then we have the introduction to what we're led to believe will be the main antagonists, the Vikings. And one of the best moments in Doctor Who this season, when the sonic glasses are snapped in two. My only regret from that moment was that it didn't stop them from working. Of course, this was the episode billed to be guest starring Maisie Williams of Game of Thrones fame. Now, I'm not and never have been a Game of Thrones fan, so for me I was completely underwhelmed by all the fuss, but intrigued enough to want to see what made half the world sit up and take notice when her name is mentioned. And something about her did stand out when the Doctor and Clara are being paraded through the village. Clearly she recognised the Doctor and he appears to recognise her. That he puts down to premonition being remembering in the wrong direction. But Maisie Williams has made her mark on this episode from that moment on. The first appearance of the Mire is quite dramatic initially, but sadly loses its impact fairly quickly when you realise that these are little more than Cybermen needing to lay off the fast food. The only real peril I felt from this scene was when Ashilda and Clara are beamed aboard the spaceship, and to be honest that's very much standard Doctor Who storytelling. Split the Doctor and his companion up as soon as possible. The episode goes on then with the Doctor preparing the village to face the Mire, once he's been dragged out of another bout of seeming self-pity and rule-baiting by the now returned Clara. Of course, in the middle of all that, we have the Doctor translating Baby once again. This time, however, played brilliantly straight by Peter Capaldi, as opposed to purely for laughs by his predecessor. Then there is, of course, that scene with the Doctor and Clara in the barn. The scene that had been talked about since before the start of Season 8. The scene that RTD said would still work. But back to the episode. On second watch I enjoyed it more, but that's mainly because I chose not to try and take every last little detail in and just enjoy it for what it was. More classic series style Doctor Who. Plain, simple adventuring. It's what the show does best, and always has done.
Thanks for your thoughts, Theta Sigma.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we
Good
should
to hear from
mention-
you again.
Yes, we should mention if you aren't a subscriber to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast, you should, because it's a very good podcast, and you should go over there and give it a listen. You can find Facebook is Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. The actual web address.
Hold on, sorry.
Glenn will have in the show notes.
Well, I know you can find him on iTunes as well.
It's probably just best to find him through Facebook.
If you search Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast on iTunes, I know you can find it there as well. Definitely check that out. He's got a great podcast. And thank you very much. Sean was nodding when he was talking about the classic Doctor Who storytelling with splitting up the companion. And it's exactly right. That's Doctor Who storytelling. In an essence, right now, split the companion up from the Doctor. But
unless it's Adric, and then they seem to leave him around for as long as possible.
Well, and then at the very end, they just split up forever. So, anyways, he addressed that, and it's something we don't talk about much. We've mentioned it before in the past, but that was another one of those prime instances. But it's funny that you split them up and then you bring them right back together just minutes later. So.
Yeah.
So, very good. All right. Let's move on.
Thank you, Theta Sigma. Up next in feedback is Chrissy.
Oh, yes. Took me a minute to figure out what that meant. Chrissy writes, "The lady who put me to sleep. Dear Vortex boys, something that they risk with these two-parters. One half of the story will be great, and the other half won't live up to expectations. Take the woman who died, for example. After equal parts fun and drama that made up the girl who died, I was expecting something similar in the follow-up. But this week's episode gave me a bunch of tedious navel-gazing coupled with an extremely whiny girl. I get that Ashildr, I refuse to call her me because that was just stupid, probably wasn't prepared for immortality and her life stunk because of it. But I never felt like I got a good sense of her turmoil. I don't feel like the character earned her angst. I have no connection to her or her problems. As such, she comes off as whiny and petulant and unlikable. At best, she's just boring. There's very little fun or humor to act as a counterbalance to Ashildr's endless complaining. And the smugness. Sweet Scarrow, her smugness was so irritating. I'm not opposed to a character having an overabundance of confidence. I like River Song, for goodness sake. But again, Ashildr didn't earn that payoff. I don't know if this is down to the writing or the direction or the acting, although I'm less inclined to blame Maisie Williams because she was so great in the previous episode. But this episode left me cold. Like, what was the point of the Doctor saving someone and having that wonderful revelation over who frowned me this face if it's just going to turn into a complete debacle? If this is what we get when the Doctor gets a new ally in time, let's just stick with the old favorites. Bring back Captain Jack or River or Vastra. By the time Clara comes through the TARDIS doors, I'm almost yelling, "Thank goodness you're back, please never leave again." Anyhow, that's how I felt after this episode, and you guys are probably going to be singing its praises. So tell me what I missed. That's all I've got for this week. Peace out, boys. Chrissy. Turns out that wasn't all she had this week. Chrissy writes, "Quick P.S. Hi again, boys. Forgot something important. Star Wars trailer! Back to the Future Day! Everything is awesome!" Oh, and I officially got engaged.
Yay!
His name's Jared. You guys would like him. He's a gamer and a total Star Trek geek, among other things. The first date he asked me out on was to watch Doctor Who Series 8, which is now his favorite. Go figure. Chrissy.
Congratulations,
Chrissy. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Congrats.
Yeah, I actually saw her post yesterday on Facebook.
So did I.
So was apprised to it before we got to this email. But thanks for sharing with our listeners as well. I know she's gotten a lot of congratulations online from listeners and friends alike. So, that's super exciting news, and we all expect to get invitations to the wedding.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm very, very, very happy. I stand by my comment. We haven't met him yet, so I don't know how excited I can really get. He's a science fiction fan. He's a geek. That's fine.
He's a Star Trek
He's
fan,
a Star Trek
Sean.
fan.
That automatically raised him up in
well,
here.
as you guys ought to know, every science fiction genre show out there has got the doppelganger episode where one of them's evil. So he could be an imposter. He could be a pod person. I don't know yet.
A goatee.
He does have the goatee. So
so does Sean. So
I've never claimed.
Sean is the evil version of whatever we could have possibly gotten.
I've never claimed to be the good guy. So until we meet him, I'm going to reserve judgment. But I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Yes, congratulations.
And Jared, you better take care of her, man.
Absolutely.
You'll have 3 very angry Doctor Who podcasters on your case if you don't.
Not to mention 4 other Five-ish fangirls.
The Five-ish fangirls. I'd fear them more than I'd fear us.
Yeah.
Chrissy, going back to your first bit, and now you guys are probably going to sing its praises and tell me what I missed. I can say for one, I will be countering your comments here. That's all I'm going to say.
This is going to be a lively show this week.
Oh. Well, let's move on to more feedback before we get to that review.
Yeah.
Up next is Holly.
Holly from the land of small town brewery that makes Not Your Father's Root Beer in Wisconsin.
For some reason, I thought you were saying from the land down under. I was all set to chime in with the next line, and I was going to sing, and I don't know why. She's not from down under.
Holly writes, The Woman Who Lived. Hey, guys. Wow, where to even start with this episode? It's Clara Light, that's for sure, so it gives the Doctor and his shielder plenty of time together. It also brings up the age-old question with immortality. Do you really want to live forever? Cue the Queen music in the background here.
Forever.
The song...
live forever. Sorry.
The sonic sunglasses are repaired, and we get the return of the psychic pepper. Psychic paper.
Ooh, psychic pepper.
That was before you're going to sneeze.
All right. Along with a mention to Jack Harkness, was it just me, or did Leandro look like Leandro? Yeah, that's right. Could look like he could be a relation to either the cat nuns or the lion type face we saw in the Warrior's Gate.
That was where I went with it.
Ending.
It's a Warrior's Gate thing. Maybe not.
The ending. I really hope Clara doesn't jinx herself. I know that she's leaving, but I don't want her to leave quite just yet. Well, I'll wrap it up here. Looking forward to everyone's thoughts on this episode. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Holly from Down Under. Oh, no, Wisconsin.
Well, if we lived in Canada, she would be from Down Under.
Touche.
Down Under from Mitch, I guess.
Yeah,
then, right?
I expect Mitch to write next week and say, I don't know what you guys are on, but no, it's not what we think of you. It's not how that works.
Our last bit of...
She's in Quebec, so it's probably like...
I don't know a map. So
Quebec comes down here. It's probably straight across. I don't know.
They're on the same parallel. I should look that up now. I'm curious.
Our final bit of feedback comes from Kirk. Kirk writes, any theories? Hey, Vortex pals. I mentioned in my comments and on The Magician's Apprentice that it was a clever use of a half Doctor Light episode. What's interesting is that the trend of filming Capaldi and Coleman separately has continued through the season so far. It may seem surprising, but they were only together on screen for 8 minutes in The Magician's Apprentice, 2 in The Witch's Familiar, 5 in Before the Flood, and 1 minute 45 seconds in The Woman Who Lived.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that...
I didn't realize that either.
No, of course, there's The Girl Who Died and Under the Lake, where they're a lot together.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Plus, you can add the upcoming episode with no characters other than the Doctor to that list. Only 2 of 6 episodes so far have normal Doctor companion screen time. What's up with that? Any theories? Kirk.
They're weaning her out early.
I think that's, yeah.
I don't know.
Making it easier on Jenna and Peter.
I don't know.
The bond isn't so strong because they're filming apart.
It could simply come down to the fact that they're managing money. And by shooting, they might be off-screen so much in these episodes because they're shooting their parts of other episodes. and they're trying to form a budget so that they can. Because everybody knows now, I think, for the most part, that Doctor Light episodes were the invention of Russell T Davies, and what it was them to be able to shoot 2 episodes at one time, so that they could squeeze enough money out of the series that's initially budgeted for 12 episodes to get a 13th episode, which in turn becomes the Christmas special. And so Russell T Davies set it up so that they could do what was called Dr. Light, so that whoever the doctor and companion are at the time can be shooting an episode while that in-between episode is being shot as well. And so they'll come in and do a couple of scenes, but primarily be overshooting their scene for another episode. And that was a way to get 2 episodes shot at once, use the same amount of money, and be able to get that 13th episode out. This could be a clever bit of money management, us knowing that the budget is very tight at the BBC. Now, the BBC is still throwing money at Doctor Who because it is their one of their elite properties. And so they've got a larger budget, but I wonder if maybe they're able to do a little more in some sort of money management that they're doing in this way. I'm just speculating here. I have no grounds for any evidence of why this would be true, but that could simply be why we're seeing a lot of them separated, because they're shooting things like, if the doctor's shooting a scene here and he's not having to be together with Clara or Jenna Coleman could be off shooting another piece in another episode where she's not with the doctor there as well. So it could be a clever bit of money management. It could be, as you guys kind of alluded to, maybe a way to wean us off Clara. I don't know.
Well, and aside from this one, it's not like she's in the episodes less. They're just not on screen together.
Correct.
So part of me wonders also if how many of these stories had at least a structure written before they knew Jenna Coleman was coming back. Because they thought she was going to leave, and then they changed it at Christmas. So I wondered how much of the outlines at least were structured, and then they had to go in and kind of adjust to fit the character of Clara in, and that's why they're separate so much.
I think that's least likely, but it's possible.
I think it's a Zygon plot, and all will be revealed next week. I think Zygons have taken over the production offices of BBC and Doctor Who, particularly in Cardiff, and they're purposely trying to drive a wedge between the Doctor and Clara's screen time, and we'll find out why next week.
And it could also just come down to the fact of Clara has grown enough as a character that she doesn't have to be on screen with the Doctor. She is almost the Doctor herself. So she can go off and do more than most companions could do on her own storyline.
I think that there lends a lot of credibility there, because they're obviously in story kind of focusing on the idea that Clara
be like the Doctor.
Being like the Doctor. Yeah. And throwing herself fully into the role of even more so than companion, and there's obviously going to be some issues with that coming up as well. So that could be
I think that's probably the largest part of it.
That's probably the
story-wise, it makes the most sense.
All right, well, that's it for feedback.
Thanks, Kirk. Good to hear from you too.
Shall we move on to our reviews?
Yes,
but first,
our spoiler-free review of Beast of Fang Rock.
But first what?
But first that.
I said reviews.
Well, yeah, but I didn't want
everybody
to get excited and think, we're going to talk about the episode, since we just got done talking about the episode.
Gotcha.
We're not going to talk about it.
We are going to talk about the episode yet.
We're just not going to talk about it right now. Instead, here's another hour of Back to the Future. I'm teasing. Well, not really. I could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah, well, that might be our other podcast. How much time do we have tonight? Let's review the Beast. No, just Beast of Fang Rock.
Beast of Fang Rock.
I don't have a synopsis.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm trying to
find we didn't get the back cover of the book, did we? Okay. That's probably on there.
What'd you guys think?
Dun, dun, dun! I didn't think it was possible to like the book.
Oh, now I found, though.
Oh. Well,
you found the synopsis. Of course you did.
Oh, well, too late.
Yeah.
Keep going.
There's a beast on Fang Rock.
I suppose we should read it, because this will be a spoiler-free review of this. And this is going to be probably the most difficult one for me to do spoiler-free, because I'm so giddy and excited about it. So let's do the just so that the listeners who will have an opportunity to buy this book coming next week.
Or if you haven't heard of this book.
Yeah, then this will give you a little bit of taste of what's happening.
There's always death on the rock when the beasts about. Fang Rock has always had a bad reputation. Since 1955, the lighthouse has been out of commission, shut down because of a fire that gutted the entire tower. But now, finally updated and fully renovated, the island and lighthouse is once more again about to be brought back into service. Students have gathered on Fang Rock to celebrate the opening of the most haunted lighthouse in the British Isles. But they get more than they bargained for when the ghosts of long-dead men return, accompanied by a falling star. Colonel Lethbridge-Stewart is brought in to investigate what he believes to be signs of alien involvement. But it is not only Lethbridge-Stewart who has an interest in Fang Rock. Anne Travers is called to her family's solicitors who have in their possession a letter from Archibald Goff, the paranormal investigator who once visited Fang Rock back in the 1820s. Along with it, a piece of alien technology. What connects the shooting star, ghosts of men killed in 1902, and the beasts that roamed Fang Rock in 1823? Lethbridge-Stewart and Anne Travers are about to discover the answer firsthand. Dun dun dun!
Is that the first time we've given 2 dun-duns to? Sorry.
That's because this story is that good. So not only does this story excel in a sequel to Horror Fang Rock, it excels as a prequel also.
It does. Well, that being said, it also excels as a sequel to the ongoing series of Lethbridge-Stewart, too.
All 3 in one book.
That's the most wonderful thing about this, is the fact that it is a sequel and a prequel to Horror Fang Rock, the fourth story, the Doctor Who's...
The fourth Doctor
story. The fourth Doctor story, Horror Fang Rock. And it also continues the line of Lethbridge-Stewart and has a lot of setup and callback and continuing characters. And in fact, another character that shows up, well, I think we can say Bishop's been this. He comes in right away, right?
Pretty early on.
Bishop, who was basically right in there with Lethbridge-Stewart.
He was essentially the Benton.
Plateau. Yeah, he's kind of the Benton of this series.
And whenever they tease him coming, I'm always like, is it going to be Benton? And then I'm slightly disappointed that it's not. Just waiting for that introduction.
Based on how well
Bishop is written. So well.
I like Bishop so much better than Benton.
Well,
I love Benton.
That's
don't get me wrong.
That's
but
blasphemy.
I think Bishop. I love
Bishop. Bishop
so
is
much.
great. He's way better than Mike Yates.
Yeah, but we know the fate of
Bishop is great.
Even early Mike Yates.
Bishop is great. He's a phenomenal character,
and I like him a lot more in this story.
He's no Sergeant Benton.
Bishop has risen in the ranks of my estimation of him, in my opinion of him, because of this story.
Yes.
He's so great. The stuff with Anne is so great in this story.
Who? Anne? Anne Travers?
Yes.
She returns as well, which I think we can say
I
because she's
that
on the
in
cover.
Synopsis too.
Oh, she was in the synopsis. But she's on the cover too.
Yeah.
So. And I don't know where to start with this because, again, just as I said, I want to do the spoilery review because I want to do all the little moments, those yay they did there, they went there, Andy did this, it was just, oh my god.
The use of the ghosts in the story is so well done and so well explained later on. But the fact that the way it's structured, if you haven't seen Horror Fang Rock in a really long time, when there are the ghosts from 1902, you get enough from what he gives you that if you've seen it recently, you can picture what he's describing. But if you haven't, you don't lose anything because
you don't. And that being said, I think this is something that somebody that is new to Doctor Who, it stands on its own as well because it does a really good job of structuring the story and letting you know everything you need to know about this location, about this lighthouse, about these characters, and everything that it ties to in Horror Fang Rock or anywhere else is served in this book in just the information that you need to know. Everything that else beyond that are a lot of yeehaw moments for those of us that are fans and those of us that go, oh, I get that. I love how this relates. I love how this ties in. This works perfectly with this and that. And, oh, there's this little squee moment of, yes, it goes there. But it still stands by itself. You can read this book from beginning to end and not be lost at all.
Oh, no.
You have to toe a very careful line when you do a sequel to a classic. And there have been books that came out, Scarlet, the sequel to Gone with the Wind, or As Time Goes By, The Secret to Casablanca, that, yeah, we brought all the characters back and we kind of put them through their paces, but, and I've read both of those, and they're just kind of like, bah, there's nothing there. They're very lifeless and fearless. So when, we're going to do a sequel to Horror Fang Rock, and of course my immediate thought was, oh my God, yes, because you guys know me. I love Fang Rock. I love that story. But then there was that other part of me was like, I hope that we can... Now, based on the success of the first book and how well Andy wrote it, I thought, okay, if anybody's going to be able to pull this off, other than me, Andy's going to give this a run for his money. And man, does he.
Yeah.
I think just works.
I think one of the smartest things about it is, while it's a prequel and a sequel, it doesn't dwell... It gives us nice nods and grounds the 1902 section of the story, horror, well enough, and it leaves it to be its own thing.
It does.
It doesn't try to rewrite that story. It leaves it as it is. It gives us references. It gives us tie-ins, but it doesn't necessarily bring back those characters like these other sequels
and that's
do.
the difference.
Yeah.
Unlike bringing back everybody from that story and saying, okay, we're going to rehash this and do it again, or do that. It's just that's framework for the story that I'm going to tell now, which is a new story, and it's got a whole different thing.
Just in the
but
same
there are
setting
elements
with the
that
same
tie
ideas.
in the same setting, the same ideas, and I think we can safely say the same monster.
Yeah.
Because it's also on the cover.
Well, sort of. It also...
It's pretty apparent.
No, because there's...
Well, there's two monsters.
So
I can't talk about that one.
No. Unfortunately,
Not sure how I feel about that one,
I like
That's my
that.
own little,
I like that because that's. I'm afraid I'm going to get too spoiler here. That is almost the conceived or perceived monster at the beginning of Horror Fang Rock. That's
true.
That's what you perceive is sort of what they're referring to in Horror Fang Rock. Now, as we know from Horror Fang Rock, it turns around and we realize that the beast is a Rutan. But
I love the different ways they had the characters say
that's
Rutan.
the way. Yeah, Rutan. Rutan. That's the way it's perceived for horror. So this book, that's another thing I liked about it. It goes one step further to almost justify both.
Yeah.
Now that was clever. That was so very clever.
It's amazing that the story can stand on its own. I mean, it really can. You could have never watched Horror Fang Rock, and you'll be completely fine reading this. You could not know anything about Doctor Who.
Yes.
And realistically still go into this and come away
You lose some
with,
of the big squee moments. If you don't,
it's still an enjoyable, thrilling tale. If you're a Doctor Who fan and a Horror Fang Rock fan, then you just kind of get all those little added layers oh, this is so cool.
It's
look
icing,
what we did here.
And then whipped cream, and then a cherry, and then they decided, well, let's dribble a little more chocolate on it, and sprinkles. We're gushing all over this book, but it really was an enjoyable read.
And it had nice moments of humor in it also.
It does. It's got great relationship building.
Yes.
The relationship between, I keep wanting to say the brig, between Lethbridge-Stewart and Anne's character, the development of Bishop and Lethbridge-Stewart. Obviously, they're setting up
and
the
Owen's
relationship between them, and then bringing Owen back, who we can say
is pretty early on in the book, too.
Because Owen is a returning character from a big part of the Forgotten Son, and so to bring all of those characters in and establish new relationships and another story around those characters, that was a lot. That was quite enjoyable. I thought that was done really well.
I would agree.
And then but this is really is really Anne Travers' story. What it is,
really
and rightfully she's on the cover, and you don't see Lethbridge-Stewart on the cover at all. Now, that's not to undersell Lethbridge-Stewart's involvement in the story, because he is a big part of this story.
Oh, yeah.
But this is really kind of Anne's story.
If I was going to complain about anything, and early on I kind of thought maybe that would be a complaint, is that, well, for the third Lethbridge-Stewart book, it really doesn't feel much like a Lethbridge-Stewart story. It's Anne's story. And I have no problem with that, because I've come to really, really like Anne as a character and everything that she stands for and her interactions with Lethbridge-Stewart. It's just
it makes sense that
fit.
she gets a bigger role in the overall story, since after Forgotten Son.
and
and then
Schizoid Earth.
Schizoid
she
Earth.
doesn't get...
It's a growing of her character. And this is the next step in that.
It almost feels like that she's kind of being used as a template for a prototype Liz.
Yeah, I think so.
You know,
Absolutely. And she is scientific advisor.
Yeah,
this
I mean,
well.
it just really kind of feels like that's the relationship we're going for. And so initially I was kind of like, well, you know, it's not much of a Lethbridge-Stewart story because he's just kind of there. He's a passive participant in the events as they transpire around him. Until
later he's not.
But later he's not. And that's when it really kind of kicks in and becomes, no, this is still a Lethbridge-Stewart story, and this is where we're going to put him in peril and make him do and kind of jump through the hoops. But then I started thinking about it, and I thought to myself, you know, realistically, all of the Brigadier stories are like that.
Yes.
The Brig kind of shows up and really doesn't have much involvement until the Doctor calls in reinforcements and we have to go blow something up.
Because he's so effective that you can't have him at the beginning or else the story ends too quickly.
But when you compare it to that, he's a lot more, he's a bigger part of these stories than he is
and
in
keep in mind, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
That was, interestingly enough, one of the problems you had with Schizoid Earth when you reviewed that is that it doesn't feel like Lethbridge-Stewart's there enough to be a Lethbridge-Stewart. You even said that. I think you said on the show, you definitely said it in conversing with me. And so I see where you're coming from, but I really felt like Lethbridge-Stewart was at least a third of this story. And really kind of overshadows. But I think and I guess the other thing that I look at is because this is the Lethbridge-Stewart story arc, he's always the reoccurring character.
And he's the linchpin of
He's
everything.
the linchpin. And so I actually quite enjoy the idea of doing these books and forming the story primarily under one character, and it doesn't have to be Lethbridge-Stewart. It can be a different character because he is the bridging element between all them. In fact, when the next one comes out, I really, what is it?
Mutually assured domination.
When that one comes out, I kind of hope to see another character be the central character and Lethbridge-Stewart be kind of this peripheral character
the glue
as
that
well.
holds
Because
all
I think it really does
together.
well because you don't get tired of learning. You don't get tired of Lethbridge-Stewart. Who could tire of Lethbridge-Stewart? But you don't get tired of Lethbridge-Stewart because he's not always the main focus of these stories.
Right, and that's the genius really of the way these are put together is that. Because we kind of got his story in the first novel.
We really did.
We really did. We got his backstory, and we got a ton of information on him.
And now it's about building him to
the character, the character that we know is coming, and setting up Unit. Because I very much feel like, even though I'm sure contractually there are pieces of that they will not be allowed to specifically say, but you can kind of tell that they're grooming things for this is kind of where this is going to fit in. This is where this is going to fit in.
Finally got mentioned in this book that is, without saying too much, is a huge setup for what's to come.
Yeah.
Whether it be in this line itself or what's to come in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's fun to see those pieces come together and start to gel. And the fact that we get these pieces on Fang Rock is just like, boy, there's some more whipped cream up on top of it. The book is really I was really reflecting on this. It's a Doctor Who book. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
It's very much a Doctor Who book.
Oh, but it's so well written around
without being a Doctor Who book. Yeah. But it's also a Scooby-Doo book. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. I mean that if you enjoy Scooby-Doo and that level of fun kind of mystery adventure that you got from any Scooby-Doo episode, that tone is kind of what permeates, I think, a lot of this stuff. I mean, the stakes are a little bit higher because there's a beast, and we're in an isolated story, and it's kind of a base under siege thing going on. But we've got this group of people that we've brought together, and then we're going to go off and we're going to split up. We're going to search for the monster. I mean, it's kind of templated almost off of a Scooby-Doo story. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought that was great because it just, while the stakes were still high, it didn't have that overwhelming sense that the last book had, where the stakes were so impossibly up here, end of the world kind of stuff. We're dealing with one island, we're dealing with one lighthouse, we're dealing with ostensibly one beast that, we've got to deal with this problem. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go. I was so on board with that. I thought it was wonderful how that was just the tone he hit with it.
I also think it kind of has a bit of the tone from the Back to the Future films. and
Yeah,
probably
a little
more
bit.
so because of its structure.
Yeah.
And we can't go into too much of why, but because there is a lot of that playing, and I'll tell you, the callback to, or this coming out so close to beneath or before the flood, with something that happens in that let's just say the causal loop. We'll say that being a central core to that, and this coming out near the same time, I thought was very serendipitous.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the whole kind of the certain events having to play out the way they do, and the reason they have to play out the way they do was very Back to the Future. Was almost a little more Bill and Ted in the sense that the car keys have to be here, but all in that fun time travel, clever,
and it wasn't all in the wait that doesn't work either. It
never was this doesn't work. It does. It really does.
There's not a moment of it where you're like, wait a minute. It all just gels.
To the extent there were a couple of times when I would go back and check, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, does this really match up as well as I think it? Yeah, it does. It really does.
Well, and this one deals with ghosts 10 times better than the Under the Lake dealt with ghosts and
before the flood.
Which again, I guess that's a little serendipitous.
Well, think about that. But you're right.
There's ghosts in that one as well. So it's
a very topical story right now.
This one, the ghosts are explained very well in this one. Now it takes me a little bit to get to it, where I think it really explains it
takes its time to explain it.
It takes its time to drill down to the core of why this is possible. So, and I like that. That's good.
But again, what's fun is that there are ghosts. Okay. And then you bring in the science kid, and she's like, no, I don't think they're ghosts. And you bring in the military guy, and he's like, I don't think they're ghosts. And then you bring in the lighthouse keeper, and like, dude, these are ghosts. These are totally ghosts. Which, again, kind of lends to that Scooby-Doo element of it, that there was this because there's always got to be that one doubting Thomas. Like, I don't think so. Yeah, no, it's totally ghosts.
Yeah.
But then as we get further into it, and then the science person does the flip and goes, I don't know, maybe these are ghosts. And you're like, what? You're supposed to protect me from these people. What are you doing?
A little bit like Under the Lake.
Yeah. So, just wonderful. But yeah, they kind of string you along with it a little bit and then hit you with here's what's really going on. And I really liked that aspect of it. I talked with Andy just a little bit on Facebook, and I had to ask him because I'm a lighthouse nut. I love lighthouses. I love the myth and the lore and the atmosphere and the Pete's Dragon and everything that has to do with the lighthouse is just like, yeah, this is it. And he nails that as well. There's something about you've all read that book that's set somewhere that you have some familiarity with, and the author didn't get it. They just kind of blew it off or didn't talk about it, and you're like, wait, no, that's not how that works. Mm-hmm. Not with this. No. Just you can tell that there's a definite sense of reverence about the fact that we're in a lighthouse, and it's not just a location. That it adds to that.
It becomes a character.
Yeah, it really does, and it helps with the atmosphere and the building up of what's going on. And I was really shocked that we spend as much time on Fang Rock as we do. We've got scenes in broad daylight, on Fang Rock, which kind of lend to the beauty of it and take away from the mystery and the fog and the, unlike horror, which is very much boom right here. But it didn't matter.
No.
Because of how the story was constructed and what was going on during those scenes. It just flowed.
Well,
perfectly.
And I think also it's the isolation of it all. I think
that's what adds
you
the
don't
horror
have
aspect
to. Yeah,
to it.
you don't have
You're
to
alone
have
on this island.
the darkness and the fog there always, because you still have the isolation. Even though there's now a helipad on top of the lighthouse at this point, and a way off of here if we need to, we are still isolated in this location, and while we deal with what's going on this rock with this beast.
You feel a little bit like Jaws when Quint comes in and smashes up the radio and you're at sea, and it's like, well, we could turn around and go back, but at the same time, that's not really an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it had that vibe to it as well.
Yeah.
I so wish we could go spoilery.
Yeah.
Me too.
In a month or so's time, we will definitely go spoilery on this because I'm excited to talk about it some more. Have we said Andy's full name? Andy Frankham-Allen is the author of this novel, and we will be full disclosure. We've had some conversations with him online now. He's been very, very gracious, and we've been very gracious to be able to get copies of these books ahead of time so that we can review them and talk a little bit about them on the show and hopefully get people excited about them. That's not to say when we get a copy of a Lethbridge-Stewart book that we don't like, we're going to be honest with you
Last
about
time,
it.
Sean and I were not as favorable about Schizoid
Earth. So, but we certainly are going to. I mean, we're not letting our connection to Candy Jar Books and Andy taint our view, and I don't think they would want us to. But because of that relationship we've developed with Candy Jar Books and with Andy, we actually are going to have. We only have a couple of copies to give out to our listeners, but we do have one caveat or one thing that you have to do for us.
You have to earn these books.
That's right. You have to earn them. We are going to ask you 5 questions. So get your pens and pencils ready, or just pause the podcast and go get your pens and pencils and pen and paper. And
get
but
your
we're going
thinking caps on.
Here's how this works. We're going to ask 5 questions. They're not directly related to Beast of Fang Rock because we understand that nobody has had a chance to read this but us.
And you don't want a free copy if you go buy one.
Andy has said many times we are the first 3 to read this outside of his office.
Yes.
So we're not going to require you to answer these questions from that, but we're going to have some indirectly related questions that we're going to ask here. 5 of them. You answer all 5 of those questions. Send it to us at feedback@travelingthevortex.com, and you can also go to our website, fill out the form to send it to us. And you answer all of these, and all of those people that submit all 5 correct answers will then go into a drawing, and we will draw from them 2 names who will receive the books that we've got to give out. So,
and you should probably put Fang Rock promotion in the subject line just so that we can differentiate it from regular feedback. Not that you're not welcome to include it with your regular feedback, of course, but just so that we can keep track.
We'll
keep track of
it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because you know how we lose things.
So should we start with the questions?
Yes.
All right.
We shall start with the questions. First question. Who is the first person to die in the 4th Doctor story, Horror of Fang Rock?
Now we're talking about the TV story, Horror of Fang Rock.
Who is the first person to die? Next question is, what alien species is seen for the first time in the 4th Doctor story, Horror of Fang Rock?
What alien species is seen
for
the first time
on television?
On television. In Horror of Fang Rock.
Third question. Name the actress who plays Anne Travers in the 2nd Doctor story, The Web of Fear. Fourth question. What was the name of Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart's brother?
In The Forgotten Son.
In The Forgotten Son.
We'll give you a reference point so you can go look. There's another reference point you can make, but we'll wait for another review for that one.
Name one other book written by author Andy Frankham-Allen.
And it can be any book that Andy's written. Does not have to be Doctor Who related. It can be Doctor Who related. He has done a few. I'm not going to say the names because I don't want to give anybody an unfair advantage.
Well, there was that one.
There is
I will say that we will not accept
everybody's
Beast of Fang Rock as an answer.
We won't accept Beast. It has to be any other book that Andy has written.
Yes.
And again, it can be inside or outside the Doctor Who connection or range or Whoniverse. Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. Good luck, and
send those in. Do we have a deadline that we need to have those by?
Let's do 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We'll shoot for 2 weeks. It won't be next show. It'll probably be the show after that. If that changes, we will let you know on our next show if we extend that deadline. But the deadline for now is 2 weeks, which would be 2 Sundays from now. Is going to be the 7th,
November 8th.
8th.
Episode 254.
Have your answers submitted by November 8th.
I'm glad I'm not in school anymore because that's probably how I would date my papers, episode 250.
That's how I still date my papers.
So good luck.
Yes.
And thanks again to Andy and Candy Jar Books for giving us this opportunity to give these materials out.
Yeah.
And I will throw...
And our chance to review these and read these.
Yeah. And I will throw a plug out there and say, if you don't want to fuss with the contest and would rather just go purchase your copy... Yeah.
Go
do it.
Oh, yeah.
Go
do it. Definitely go do it.
I think I'm going to go purchase a physical copy of this one because I enjoyed it so much.
I'm totally going to buy a physical copy.
I forgot to ask, is Andy signing these copies?
I hope so.
Hopefully he's... Yeah, well, see, there's another incentive.
Oh, yeah,
if
that's
Andy
true.
is signing these copies, which I believe he is, then it'll be signed copies. So even if you go out and buy one, you'll still have a signed copy.
Yeah.
In which case, you may get mine, and I'll hold on to the signed one.
No, you won't, Sean.
This is how I get myself locked out of the prize vault. I make innocent comments, and you guys are like,
That's why we had
we'll hold on to those.
We had to take the key away from Sean and give it to Keith.
Because he's so trustworthy.
Hey.
Well, I didn't trust myself with it. So.
Really, it's with Cody, so it's... he buried it in the backyard somewhere. I don't know.
Hopefully he remembers where it's at.
Do we need to play the special song to get him to go to sleep so we can open the trapdoor right behind him? Yeah, I went there.
Nice.
Very cute bow tie, by the way.
Oh, thank you. We got him another one that has stars on it. Shall we move on to our review of The Woman Who Lived?
Yes. Let's not put it off any longer.
England, 1651. The deadly highwayman, the Nightmare, and his sidekick stalk the dark streets of London. But when they find loot that's not of this world, they come face to face with the Doctor. Who is the Nightmare in league with? And can the Doctor avoid Hangman's noose and protect Earth from a devilish betrayal?
Dun, dun, dun! Oh.
Really?
This is funny, because last week he was just loving the first part of this two-part story, and I was like, yeah.
I went back and rewatched last week's, and I thought and on my second review it was very enjoyable. I don't know if I put it as high as you put it, Sean, but it hit all the right notes. It's there. It's a good story. It's enjoyable. That's it.
So there's Keith's second review of The Girl Who Died.
Just out of curiosity, did you happen to read the IO9 article that I posted? Go to our Facebook page. IO9 had a wonderful breakdown of why The Girl Who Died is the pantheon of Doctor Who that I thought it was.
I read it and I still disagree.
I think they said it much more eloquently than what I was struggling to come out with. But as I read it, I went, yeah, that's what I was trying to say that.
They hit on the points. The thing is, I understood, even if you don't think you said it eloquently, I understood exactly what you were saying about it. And they did maybe say it better, but it didn't change my opinion of it. It didn't change my decision about it. I'm interested to know, I want you to start first as to why this one didn't even get a dun-dun-dun.
It was okay. It was kind of what Keith had just said, that, it was there. That's really all I felt for this. I felt they squandered the opportunity. Now, Maisie may be back, in which case, at that point, I may change my perception on this one, because all of a sudden it will be the middle part of a trilogy as opposed to the capstone. But I felt like they squandered the opportunity to deal with this immortality.
What?
Now, hang on.
That's the best part of the whole story.
That's what this story is.
Yes, the lion and the
part about it. This is all the story was about.
I think one thing that, well, maybe why it's not setting well for people like Chrissy, maybe for you, Sean, is that it's directly on the heels of The Girl Who Died. Had we had the Zygon two-parter in between it, given some time between the two stories, that maybe there would be more weight to the immortality discussions. But on the heels, it feels like it's such a quick turnaround for the character. And for a viewer, for some viewers, I could see.
I disagree with that.
It doesn't fit that for me, but I could see how that could hurt.
It doesn't, because it's so eloquently discussed in the story, and it's so well played out as to what has happened to a Shielder, between the moment that the Doctor left and the moment that the Doctor's arrived. That, through all of the dialogue that happens and even some of the brief flashback scenes that we get all of that. We get all of the ramifications and all the repercussions.
No, that I agree with.
Everything that has happened
and the fact that it's been 800
years. Now. And all of that is conveyed. So I didn't feel like we needed any time between because we were given all of that time between so eloquently in the story.
Yes and no. I totally get where they were going with her character, and that she was bitter about the immortality, that she was not happy with the immortality because of this, and she's got these diaries, and that this is what's happened. And I
love the exploration that she may be living forever, but her brain doesn't keep the memory forever.
Yeah,
that is such a cool thing that I've never seen explored anywhere else.
That's a really unique.
I really like that aspect of it.
I mean, any time science fiction has dealt with an immortal, at any time, there's the inevitable woe is me, because immortality is a curse and it kind of sucks and everybody I know dies. So that's given. Even the Doctors had that. And so you knew that was coming. And so when she lays it out there that everybody disappears, they're like smoke. It's like, okay, cool. This is where we're getting that moment. But they did it in such a way that I kind of agree with Chrissy that I didn't feel as connected to her angst over 800 years. Because I'm sorry, I firmly come down on the belief that if I was immortal, I'd be the happiest person ever. There's nothing you can convince me of. Losing you guys and my family and Mel, okay, I'll move on. I'm sorry, I will get over you, and I will find other people to hang out with afterwards. Being immortal would be the greatest thing ever. I have always thought that. And so seeing another portrayal of I was like, okay.
But, so you missed the point of this story.
No.
That's the problem.
It depends on your approach to immortality.
It's not me or Schilder's story. That's all the distraction, is what this story is. This is all about the question as to what the Doctor did at the very end of the last story. Was that the right thing to do?
It's the Doctor dealing with the consequences of his actions.
Yes, and all of that whining that did Chrissy eloquently said.
I didn't think that
has nothing to do. That's all a distraction. That's you. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to say, "Yeah, we've seen it before. Yes, immortals. This is what they have to deal with. This is the consequence of that." It's the consequence of the Doctor's actions. It's not. Right. It's not a Schilder story. It's us wondering: did the Doctor do the right thing? Yes, we knew what the consequences were going to be based on tropes in other science fiction, and that was delivered upon, which it should have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is ultimately the Doctor then second guessing himself as to whether he should have done what he did, and that's where the story drills down to
almost her soul on a knife edge, tipping one way or another based off of now this interaction of him figuring out.
And so the whole purpose of this story is for the Doctor to explore. The whole purpose of the story is for the Doctor to...
It would be cliche for her to fall on the evil side and become a villain.
Yeah.
No, because here's the deal.
Because she could easily be the proto-master.
Right.
But she doesn't. She falls on this other side, which is great.
Ultimately, she turned on a dime. That was the problem. We get a whole episode of her grief. We get a whole episode of her problem. We get a whole episode of this.
She didn't turn on a dime.
She did.
She did not turn on a dime.
She most certainly did. When we get this whole... She has reason to be angry. I'm not disputing her angst. Unlike Chrissy, who doesn't think it's found. I mean, she's lost children. That's pretty massive. I get that. So she's got reason to be angry, and she's got reason specifically to be angry at the Doctor. Because of the line in the first film about how much she loves her village and the people in it, that she wouldn't know what to do if she lost them. And then she does.
Yes.
Because she outlives all of them.
And that's the beauty of
this.
That. No, that's the beauty
of
this.
Well, the beauty of the story,
because
but it's the horror
story,
of that.
That's what is... That, in fact, if anything made me appreciate last week's episode more, it was this story. Because of the rosiness and the direness at the end and the setup for this, and for her to go through that and see all of that tragedy, and for her to live all that and the oh woe is me, and living on, as Keith said, the knife's edge, because she really is living on the knife's edge. And when you say she turned on a dime, you're furthest from the correct of that, because she didn't change. That's ultimately what this story said. is when
She's
it
been
came
good
down
the
to
whole
it,
time.
she's been good the whole time. She's just had the shades of her past and experiences that has completely masked that, and to a point
'Cause even
almost
with the-
smothered it out. But
even with
was
the robbing, it's not
ultimately
like she was off
always
killing
there.
people.
And when it came to the moment to have, where she was forced to make that decision on that edge of that knife, she made the decision that she was always destined to make, but she had to come to that, and we had to, again, this story is about the doctor. This story is about the doctor having almost convincing himself that he may have done the wrong thing. And it's not until the discussion between him and her in the pub when the guy we haven't even talked about,
Sam
the Quick, Sam Swift the Quick, I think was his name. Or anyway, when she grants that immortality to him and it wasn't necessarily even to save his life, it was to save what was going on at that time, to right the mistakes she had made. It was at that moment and that discussion of the reason why ultimately her fate was to. Ultimately, she's there to watch over the companions that she leaves behind, and I think that's the most beautiful message that they could have presented in Doctor Who ever, because it's something that the Doctor, the best moment it is the fact that
like
the Doctor,
HR version of Torchwood.
the Doctor having to face the fact that he has always been in a shielder situation where he has to leave the companions behind. And there's never anybody to look after them after he leaves. This gave the perfect character for somebody to do that. And I want to believe, until they tell me different in the third part of this story, I want to believe that that's been her role in life since. And she'd even said she had come across people before that knew him. That's why she knew so much about him. She is their overseer and protector. Now, I'm not saying that she's protecting them and saving them physically and making sure that she steers them down the right path, but she is certainly keeping an eye on them to make sure that their lives are progressing and they're not falling into the same things she did, in a way that they're pining after the fact that they weren't able to go on with him.
And I think that is a lovely sentiment, and I 100% agree with that's how it plays out. The problem I have is in between my life sucks, oh, here's this lion guy, I'm going to hook up with him and do some evil stuff, including killing a guy, so that I can open a portal to escape Earth, because I'm destined for so much more. I don't have a problem even with that, because if you're immortal, it was like, yeah, you kind of would have that manifest destiny about you, that there's got to be more than just this. Especially in the Dark Ages. Oh my
of the times
God,
to be immortal.
That would suck so much. But she's weathered all of that.
She lived through Norris times all the way through the Dark Ages. Let's not undersell it, John.
But I mean, the Renaissance was pretty cool, and it's just
still not as great as everyone thinks it was.
So to go through all of that and have the suckage, and then the lion guy shows up out of the middle of nowhere and goes, well, I can get you out of here. It's like, okay, you grasp at straws. I get that.
And always hoping that the doctor would come back for her.
And always hoping the doctor comes back. And then the doctor does come back, but he doesn't come back for her. He's just kind of there accidentally. And so that stung, and she's a little pissy about that. And so maybe that's why she's, okay, fine, I'm going to go off with lion guy, and I'm going to go do this stuff. And, it's going to involve killing somebody, and I'm okay with that. Until she's not. It just all of a sudden was like...
I think she was denying to herself that she was okay with it.
Yes,
See,
exactly.
now if that's the case, and I could buy that.
I think also because of her at this point she had been isolated for so long, she didn't even think of the death or the Lion person as an ally. It's their tools, and same thing with the doctor.
Let me give you one more caveat to that: is both of the planned deaths were condemned men. She never would have killed a person who had life ahead of them.
But if that's the case, then the whole scene where Sam tries to rob her and capture her and the doctor, and they have the flipping back and forth of who's going to have the upper hand, and then she winds up winning that contest, and she's got the musket at his face, and the doctor has to step in and say, if you kill him, you make an enemy of me, for her to change her mind. That was a tense moment. That really showcased to me how far she had progressed and how far she was willing to go and how dark she thought her life was.
You know what it...
And if she was wavering through this whole time, that scene has now lost all of its
You know why
teeth.
she did it? She was testing the doctor. That's ultimately what it came down, because from the point that he showed up there when they were both trying to get the amulet, which was fun as heck, from that point to that point, she was always testing the Doctor. He was her companion through the majority of this. She was always one step ahead of him, and she was always at the point where she was testing the Doctor, and that was one more test. And from our perspective, it looks like it was an ultimatum from the Doctor. I guarantee from that point, she had never intended to kill him, but she was pointing the gun because she wanted to show the Doctor that she had control, she had the power. Great, the Doctor's come across another control freak, but that was her testing the Doctor, and she had to push the Doctor to a point to say, if you do it, you've made an enemy out of me. That's where that is. That's the point. I think people went into this episode and they kept focusing on all of the wrong things, which I think you're intended to. Don't get me wrong. I think that's how it's designed.
No,
but once it comes to the point of the climax, everything kind of falls into place for me. I think that's the perspective of the show, is the fact that you go into this and you have one frame of mind and one idea of how this is all playing out. And when the big reveal happens with the climax, you kind of retroactively look back at it and go, oh, this was all really kind of a build-up to this moment, and I was expecting one thing, and a whole nother thing played out, and then it just retroactively said, okay, this makes so much sense now. That one moment of her turning, just made everything it was like this moment for me. Because I did a lot of the same thing. Okay, we've seen the angsty immortal, we've had the, fortunately, because we're going through all that, we have all of these wonderful road movie moments of the pair nearly getting in trouble, feuding the whole time, just, the funny, the witty, the jokes that were happening throughout the whole thing. That was the thing that carries you through all of the angsty, whining. Sure. Yeah. So that makes that all the better in there, that it's all of the kind of tropey things that are happening. And then to have that turn and realization that this is really her, number one, testing the Doctor, and number two, that the Doctor is second guessing what he did, and this really ultimately, this was the right thing to do, and he did it, and and it was the payoff for why he did that at the end of the last one. And again, that makes the last part of that last story so much better for me.
It's like I said. I don't disagree with any of your points.
As I didn't agree with any of your points.
I don't disagree with any of them. The performances were fantastic. Maisie Williams is amazing. She should be in everything. She's that good.
The dialogue
was great.
And this gal that wrote this, has she written before? Because she needs to come back and write much more Doctor Who for
I don't believe she has.
She wrote for Torchwood.
Yeah, that's right. I did. That's why I recognize the name. She needs to write more Doctor Who. She is a phenomenal wordsmith.
She scripted Out of Time, Captain Jack Harkness, Meet, and Adam.
Oh, those were all good ones.
Yeah.
I liked the Captain Jack line drop, and I thought we had a lot of...
Explains why she did it.
I thought we had a lot of good elements to this that just didn't gel for me in the way that, even the way I hoped. Maybe I just need to watch it again. I did this. I only got to see it the once. And I watched
seen the ones too, though.
I watched it today.
I want to watch it again.
I've seen it twice, so
maybe if I put them back to back. And Mel kind of felt the same way. Mel looked at me afterwards and kind of went, it was all right. She says, I think I need to watch it again. I was like, okay, well, that's not like, I'll twist my arm. I'll watch Doctor Who. But, I came off of this going, I think this was the weakest one of the season so far. And I don't mean that now that's saying something, because
I think this was the strongest one.
If you put this episode up against some of the ones from last season, it's still head and shoulders above some of those. Last season was so uneven with some of the bouncing around. And while it's still a strong episode, it's still a good episode, I still think it's the weakest one of the season so far. But that comes really solely based on the turn of that I didn't buy the turn. I didn't buy that she suddenly became good, or that she was wrestling with it.
Suddenly become
good. I don't buy that she was wrestling with it. I don't buy that she was good all along and just trying to put up this show. I don't buy that.
I don't think it was a show. I don't think she knew.
I just didn't buy it.
I don't think she knew. I think that it was.
I think a lot of it was she was bored and wanted something to do. after living for so long.
And see, that I could buy too.
And that's why she had teamed up with the Lion, and that's why she was going through all this.
Oh, yeah, it was desperation.
It was new excitement. Because that's the only reason she did the robbing was excitement.
Well, here's the analogy. Here's the allegory. It was the kid that grows up in a small town, and he has done everything that he can, and he feels like he has no way out. And he gets to a certain age, and a guy comes along and says, I will take you out of this town. You've got to help me rob this liquor store, though. And so ultimately, when that becomes the prize, that's going to get me out of here. I can do that. I can do this here. And that's the allegory of this is granted, the kid hasn't lived mortally, but he has done everything he can do in the 18 years that he's lived. And he feels he has no future or nothing more unless he gets out of this town. And when the guy comes along and offers him the opportunity to get out of this town, he's willing to do nearly anything to get out of town. That's what this was. And it was beautifully, beautifully written.
If your protagonist remembered that they had done everything there was to do, and was not immortal, that works.
The immortal one I can't fix.
Those two pieces.
But a kid that grows up in a small town and knows the same thing does forget the good things about the town. It forgets the good things about growing up. They forget the good things about childhood and all of the people that helped them along the way.
All they see is this crummy town that I'm never going to escape. All they see is this crummy town that I'm never going to escape.
Bedford Falls. Right. Yeah, exactly.
But when you've lived for, how old was she? 800 some odd years. The impression that I got through the whole thing is that she really thought she was smarter than the Lion guy. Even though the doctor told her he's going to betray you at the first opportunity. He's going to betray you. And she's like, how do you know it's not me? It's like, okay, so she's setting him up. Like you said, he's a tool. She's using this to get out of town. I get that. But then all of a sudden when he goes, no, you're not coming with me. And she's like, what? I'm not coming with you. And it's like, where's your plan? Where's the master stroke of where you're going to flip the table on him again?
Again,
you're just going to turn good.
The beauty of the character is that she was so blinded by her style, her technique, her ability to learn.
She was Michael Bay. She was all style.
Exactly. She had built herself up so much. She felt that she not only was immortal, she was invulnerable. Yeah. And because she was so great at everything that she did, she was fooling herself. And so ultimately, when she thinks she's in control and she realizes, wait a minute, I love the fact that, hey, there's that smack in the face of reality that you didn't have this one planned out. That was another element that made this so good.
It humbled her.
Yes. Sorry, Keith. We're talking a whole lot.
I'm agreeing with pretty much everything you're saying.
Then you say it and convince me. He's not doing a very good job of it. So
I don't know how I could say it differently. The only part of the story for me that didn't quite work
he didn't say better.
Differently. Or better. Was really Sam Swift the Quick, or whatever his name was. I felt like this, aside from it was mostly the gallows stuff when he was there. It felt like a lot of forced humor that just felt out of place to me.
I did read, I got curious about that. I did read that there is some precedent for highwaymen because they were like the Robin Hoods of their time. They weren't necessarily robbing for good.
Yeah, they were just robbing.
They were romanticized. They were our American Western outlaws is what they were. Is that people loved to read about them. They were, in a way, they were kind of an anti-hero and people worshipped them. And it was, as a matter of fact, a lot of times if they could get the attention of the crowd and in some way impress or win the crowd over, sometimes they could win the crowd over against the executioner and escape execution. And I think this was his device and his way of escaping execution was to continually win over the crowd with humor. And there might even have been a precedent for that, for highwaymen that did that.
Yeah.
But that was his last-ditch effort to prolong the inevitable and perhaps escape or win them over in order to be released or something. So that was retroactive for me because that was I kind of was in the same boat with you.
It just felt like, we need to lighten this episode up a little bit.
Yeah, until we got to the point. Until I got to the point where I learned about that, that kind of even made that a lot better for me.
Yeah, I liked that part. I like the fact that the doctor gives him the blank stare at first. And then you could almost see the wheels click into place that, I've done that. He's doing me. Okay, yeah. And Yeah, I liked that.
Another big. There's another example of how the Doctor is so sidelined while being such a pertinent part of this story. I also love the fact that they're the guys that come in and Lady Me says he's been robbing. That's the Doctor. He's his sidekick. He was robbing my house, and so they're going to take him off. And then he's like, how much were you going to get for? Well, $20 or £20. And he goes, I actually know where Lady Me keeps her valuables. It's worth at least £30. And so those guys, a product of the time, completely turned and said, yeah, you can go. Let us know where the money is. I loved that.
I think for me, part of why I enjoy it so much is I am a sucker for some of the immortal stories, and especially when they bring something a little bit different, like the memory aspect of it. That's what's like Interview with a Vampire. That's why that's so fascinating. It's not the vampirism in it; it's the immortality that's fascinating to me. Same thing with like Dracula and
Louis, I felt was whiny.
Louis was a little.
Louis was whiny.
Louis was a little whiny.
I did not think she was whiny. I got to disagree with Chrissy. I didn't find her. I didn't think she was whiny.
I didn't find her whiny either.
Now,
I think she.
The me thing. I didn't even have a problem with.
She was making a point.
Kind of a cool. I call myself me because that's who I am.
I love the explanation of anyone who knew me by any other name is gone. So
yeah,
instead of just coming up with new names.
Again, a little bit of a twist on the Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not calling myself this. I'm going to call myself the Doctor and go off and do this because this is what I do. And she said, I'm me because it's all about me at this point because I can't do anything else. That, to me, was a cool aspect of it.
I think when Chrissy's saying she was whiny, I think she was trying to make a point. I don't think she necessarily thought she was being whiny, but because of her brooding, she was being whiny.
The angst.
The angst of it, yeah.
I think what it comes down to, I didn't like the lion.
The lion does feel underused and unnecessary.
I had a Glenn anthropomorphized monster moment. Because the glowing eyes...
If there was anything that bothered me, it was the fact that he was alive.
The glowing eyes in the dark are cool. What is it? What is it? What is it? And then he steps in and it's a lion. And it's like... So okay, maybe it's the guy. Maybe it's a tie-in to that. Oh, and we got a name drop of the pteroleptils, the rainbow trout. Yeah, we got a drop of that. That was cool. But maybe it's a tie-in to Warriors
and
Gate.
The Doctor definitively saying it was the pteroleptil's fault, not his.
Sure.
He stepped out of the shadows, and Sarah goes, "It's Beast."
Well, it's funny that
Ron Perlman.
I'd have been okay with that too. Actually,
the fourth Doctor says that he was blamed for the fire. The fifth Doctor realizes what really happened. So the 12th Doctor is now finally saying, no, it was really it wasn't me. He's clearing it up now.
But Rome. We still got a pretty
Rome
much.
was definitely the first Doctor.
Rome was his fault.
One of as far as the details of this go, I really, really thoroughly enjoyed the idea that early in her diaries, her writing wasn't great at all. It was terrible.
Well, it was different language even.
By the time that he gets a lot further along, by the time he gets further along, her handwriting is very detailed and exquisite. And I thought, that's a product of writing for so long. You're good.
Yeah. It's a really good production note. Yeah.
The other thing that I liked about it was when he realizes that the pages are tore out. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, there's a reason why those pages are torn out, and that's going to be part of the mystery. And then when ultimately the answer is, I tear out the ones I don't want to remember, the memories that I don't want. I thought
that are so painful to remember. Yeah,
that's just great. Well, can't imagine anything more painful than losing your children, because he's making a point. Those pages are still there, and she makes the counterpoint that I choose to remember that so that I
don't have any more kids.
So well written.
Although I got the impression the plague claimed the kids, and part of me wondered if wouldn't they be partially immortal also? If that's now biologically a part of her.
She said she got sick.
Yeah, and got better,
and then got better. So
I think that's still the device in her DNA, or not her DNA, in her physiology is still completely
it's not part of her DNA,
but not necessarily something that she would have passed.
Well, because she also, she looked a little older, but still very much,
But she looked older in the sense of the way she looked
carried
wizened.
herself
She carried
older.
herself older.
She looked wizened. She looked experienced. That's how she looked older to me.
Well, I think Mel was having trouble with the, Arya Stark having children. that was she kind of like, whoa, what?
Well,
Those are her kids? And it was like, well, okay, however old she is, was an appropriate age in these days to
because
have children.
life expectancy is in the 30s, and
Yeah.
the actress is 18.
Right.
So
because she only stopped aging physically. She didn't stop aging mentally and maturely and all of those elements of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I struggle with
I
that a
guess,
little
for
bit
that
too
matter.
until I thought about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to thinking of her as the young Arya Stark, even though she's not that young on the show anymore either.
Yeah.
Of course, she's older than what she's supposed to
She's
be in the
older
book
than what
anyways.
she's playing, but yeah.
Well, even the character in the show is older than the book
really?
version. Yeah. She's like 12 in the book.
Yeah, and I can't even pick on the makeup for the lion was cool. I mean, it was a good-looking lion, man. I can say that.
I don't know
But
why
just-
he breathed fire, but other than
other than the fact that we needed
Well,
something
if
to
you're
breathe
going to have
fire,
an
okay.
alien anthropomorphized animal, give it something that makes it alien.
Fire breathing. Okay.
Fire breath and glowing eyes. I thought that was...
Well, the glowing eyes make sense because he's a cat.
No, but they
Fire breath,
they
no.
would
They
light
gleamed.
up and glowed without a reflection
wasn't
hitting
reflective,
them. Yeah.
Oh, cat's eyes do that.
It was
have cats.
there was a
Cats are evil.
There was a source for that light, and it wasn't reflective.
But yeah, I mean, he was. There was no benefit to the story. He was a tool. He was a means to the end, and I don't think he was realized all that great.
If it had been anything but a lion, I think it still would have worked just as well. So
Yeah, they just needed some sort of alien.
It should have been a rainbow trout. That would have been more interesting. If we're gonna make a callback to it, let's do it.
Liptle's back. Anything else on this one?
I don't think so.
I hope I'm proven wrong. I really genuinely do. I hope that I can come back at the end of the season and now go, that episode makes so much more sense now because they fixed it and they,
Well, and I wonder if it won't even be this season.
It may not be. Although I suspect, and
With
the
the
internet's
final-
already
with the
abuzz
final
about
shot,
with the
so-
final shot. The internet's already abuzz that I think it's episode 10. Everybody's speculating that she'll be back.
So
But and what a cool final shot when Clara showed up and here's a selfie of this.
yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, not to mention the fake interview with Winston Churchill. That was funny. You essentially cheated. All right, what do we got coming up on the schedule, Sean?
Well, next week on the schedule was the proposed Day of the Doctor for Friday Night Who. And again, we decided to change it to do a little more Halloween-y type episodes. We'll be doing Blink and Listen. So, 2 that are readily available on Netflix or other options for you to join in. So join in, for Pete's sake, including you, mister, because Keith and I are tired of talking to ourselves.
And each other.
And at each other. Excuse me.
You didn't have anybody but you guys this week?
Yeah, this week it was just 2 of us.
Oh.
I think Michelle might have popped in for a little bit.
Mitch was there.
Yeah.
I don't know if she was tweeting, but
I don't think so, but she was there watching.
was she watching?
I think so.
Or was she just on?
I don't know.
Anyway.
She tweeted me at some point. We will have a 5-minute intermission for those who don't have Netflix, so you can swap discs or whatever you need to do to get the next episode ready.
Good point of, yeah.
So we'll do a second countdown, and so watch that on the tweet stream.
And then our show next week will be the Zygon Invasion, which the trailer looked really interesting. And then the following week for Friday Night Who, November 6th, will be Terror of the Zygons for Friday Night Who, just before the Zygon Inversion, which we will be covering in episode number 254. And I don't believe we've got any other changes to the programming at this point that I'm aware of that are coming up. But
Well, we're going to add K9, but
that's down the road a bit.
it's down the road.
Yeah.
We've also got comics and more Big Finish and all kinds of things that are on the
we
schedule.
need to do Canine and Company that week for Friday Night Ooh.
We could. That would be kind of fun.
Note that down.
It would also give me an excuse to pop Invisible Enemy back on there again.
Well, that's true.
Because you know how much I love that one.
I got that one for my birthday.
Just as a note, man, if you're going back and revisiting stories, Invisible Enemy.
I'm not entirely sure how that would work in a Lethbridge-Stewart story, but...
He goes into space. Moonshot. Titan rockets that go to Titan. Hey, there's got to be something in there, right? Maybe he goes and doesn't think that he's actually been there. Maybe the swarm comes to Earth. I don't know.
Oh, there you go. That could work.
Be sure that you visit our website, www.travelingthevortex.com, for all kinds of goodies and sundries on there that you can order. And some of that money comes straight to us so that we can put it into this podcast, continue to bring you this show. You can also find us on the various forms of social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, and Goodreads, and... yeah, we're still on Google Plus until it dies a complete death. And if you got feedback, you can send it to you can send it to feedback@travelingthevortex.com. Don't forget to get your answers in for the giveaway this week.
One subtle note to our Patreon members. Again, thank you very much for your patience. I have everything ready to go, but we have one added bit to the thank you package that I've been informed should be ready by the 1st of the month. So that's when I'm kind of holding everything until I've got it all together, and then those will go out. So if you haven't gotten me your address yet, please send it in. You're running out of time.
I've been running out of time for 6 months. So. All right.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Absolutely.
And interacting with us on Facebook and Twitter and supporting us. We can't express how much it means to us.
If that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.